Hi, I'm Nicola, the Content Manager at Fiber Arts Take Two. I'd like to acknowledge the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, the traditional custodians of the land where Take Two is based. Imagine stepping into a room that remembers you. Faded wallpaper curls at the edges, light spills through cracked ceilings, and each breath carries the scent of age and paint. The walls feel alive, breathing, shifting, whispering stories of all they've held. This is the world of artist Carlie Trosclair. From the historic homes of New Orleans to grand staircases and weathered brick stoops, Carlie creates latex casts that hold time itself. Thin, translucent skins that act as both memory and trace. Her work honors the fragile endurance of place, the homes and structures that become extensions of ourselves. Through our conversation, Carlie reflects on her evolution from painting to immersive installation, on how the act of casting becomes a way to preserve what is fleeting, to trace the memory of touch and time. Her work bridges architecture and nature, transforming walls, staircases, and even trees into living records of the places we inhabit and the stories they hold. If you've ever felt the pull of a place long gone, or sensed the quiet echo of your own stories in the walls around you, this episode will invite you to see the spaces you inhabit with new eyes. Let's dive in. Hello, welcome, Carlie.
Hi, how are you? Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining me on this, I want to say like sunny morning for me, but I have to always remember that we have people joining from everywhere all the time, different times. So where are you? Tell me, let's ground ourselves a bit.
Yeah, I'm newly arrived to Provincetown, Massachusetts. It's been very rainy here, so I'm one of those people that it's not super sunny today. But um, yeah, I just started a new residency a week or so ago. So just getting my bearings here and learning about place.
Yeah, and it's a long one, you said.
Yeah, 7 months, multiple seasons.
7 months. Yeah. That's a I think, I mean, maybe I'm uninformed, but that seems like a really long one.
No, it's definitely it's the longest one that I've ever done, and there are a few that are like a year long, but this is like the longest I've done and one of the longer ones. So I'm really excited to see what happens and have no idea what's going to happen too. Just kind of here for it all.
How cool. I love that. So to maybe ground even further, how has your day been today? Have you been working on some artwork today?
I'm still just kind of settling in and unpacking some things. Um, the Fine Art Work Center where I am, they've been doing a lot of really great kind of orientation and just walk about the city. And today we had um, a tour of like this coastal restoration center. So just learning about work that's being done here to keep whales safe and research about whales and the ocean and all kinds of things. So it's been a great day, just kind of learning more and more about the place that I'm going to be living.
Aw, I love whales. I'm a bit jealous with that.
I'm I'm still kind of wrapping my head around their majestic. I mean, they're just so massive and incredible. Yeah, we went on a whale watching tour last week, so that was so have seen some whales already. So that was nice to kind of like have that context, learning more about them too.
How cool. Imagine like your work, a whale, like casting a whale. Like I think I'm getting ahead of myself here, but oh my gosh, that yeah, anyways. I digress. I did not think we would talk about whales this morning, but here we are.
Here we
Be-
are.
Beautiful whales.
Yes.
Um, oh, that's so nice. So you kind of get to, yeah, you get to know the place and the town, and
Mhm.
obviously you'll make some artwork in collaboration with that. That's really cool.
Mhm.
Really, really cool. Um, well, thank you for that grounding shape. Thank you for sharing that. Um, I always like to start with like a bit of a simple but also really difficult question, especially for artists.
Okay.
Um, what is your favorite color?
Mm, honestly, I think I'm kind of wearing it. There's I kind of like this there's like this grayish purple that happens around like sunrise.
Mm.
Um and also like I come from a painting background, so I'm there's like a Payne's gray. It's like a bluish gray. So like if you add a little lavender in that, that feels like my favorite. That's the color I kind of always gravitate to.
Mm, I love that. I always find the purple's like magic. It's got some magic
Mhm.
to it, isn't it? Purpley kind of
Yeah.
hues.
Anytime there's purple in nature, it's just like, whoa, like really catches your eye because it's not, it happens, but it's not super common. And it's just, again, it's just one of those colors that are unbelievable.
Mm, yeah, so true. So we've talked about whales, we've talked about the color purple. Let's talk about your artwork. So how would you describe your artwork to someone who's never seen it before?
So I usually rely on nature as a metaphor, a lot of my in my practice, but also as a descriptor. So I typically describe it as thinking about like a snake shedding its skin or a cicada shell, but apply that to like an old building. So I'm creating latex casts that are these thin, transparent impressions. So they hold the details of the place that it is cast from. So I use like the original object or building, and it kind of becomes this shedded skin of its layers and holding the time of that object.
Mm, yeah, that's such a beautiful description of it. I love that snakeskin image, and I think that's something that, yeah, we can kind of we'll talk about a bit later, but it's yeah, that shedding is also
Mhm.
another action of it that's super interesting. So it's really grounded in place, your work and I guess moments in time. I'd love to know a little bit more about you, just so our listeners can kind of get to know you. So where are you from? What's your background?
So I'm from New Orleans, Louisiana, in the United States. And I was born there, grew up there, spent the majority of my life there. And it's a historic, rich cultural city that's full of art and music and historic architecture. And when I was growing up, I spent a lot of time in just houses in general because my dad is an electrician. So between his job and just like being in these kind of old houses that were being restored or built from the ground up, um, yeah, the idea of home and like the building of home was always like a part of my upbringing, and
Mm.
gravitated to art at a young age. And I mean, I don't know how much you want to get into that, but traditionally more of like a painting background, and then found more contemporary art examples later, uh, before college. So,
Mhm. Yeah, that the painting background's always like a nice place to start, isn't it? Because it gives you,
mhm.
yeah. And was it oils or more acrylic?
Yeah, I learned oil. I was going to these classes with this old woman who like taught painting, oil painting out of her garage, and we would listen to classical music and learn how to like paint and mix colors. And it was, yeah, it was just like really something that I think painting is just so accessible, and like mark making. And so like I think it's just like a natural route maybe that a lot of us take. But I think I can kind of see now, like as I reintroduce color into my work, um, like kind of that painterly, not only like brush stroke, like with applying the latex, but also like color coming in, and it's still right there in the back of my head about how I'm like approaching making.
Yeah, I think there's something so special about that evidence of the hand
Mm.
and the mark, evidence of the like that it's made by a human. Because I think
Right.
inherently a lot of things and that we see now that are man-made are really hidden. Like the
Mhm.
evidence of the hand has really been erased in a lot of senses. So it's
Mhm.
interesting to have that like carry through your work. Um, yeah. I think I want to get right into it. I feel like
So
this is a nice little background, but so for our listeners, I first came across Carlie's work actually on Pinterest. Just some beautiful, glowy, like light. The way you light up your work makes it just so warm and bright. And I want to share some earlier works, and we can kind of walk through your trajectory of working with fabric, and then moving into, well, I guess off the wall and working with a bit more latex, as we've talked about. So the first few works that, and I think you mentioned these like blew up on Pinterest, and it really seemed like it did. But I'll just put this one up for our listeners. I was wondering if maybe you could describe this to the people that are listening, this artwork.
Yes. So this is an installation that I was thinking a lot about nests and thinking about fabric as this kind of intermediary between the body and the built environment. So this is kind of it's an organic, almost swooping, nest like. I'm using like pleats, like fabric in kind of a pleated fashion to almost soften and round the corners and the edges of a otherwise just straight up white cube. And then the fabric is lit from within. And so it has this kind of like amber and almost like pink fleshy glow emitting from it. And you can't even really tell in this photo, but essentially it it wraps completely around the room, and you have to enter it like by crawling through it. So you have to get on your hands and knees and kind of crawl through this webbed, um, confined space along the parameters of the room. And then when you kind of circle into the center of it is when you kind of look back and see what you've emerged from. And then you get the full kind of scope of this swooping nest like installation.
And that is such a beautiful description. And I would love to know, like, we're talking about oil painting. How the heck did you decide? Like, I know it's a longer trajectory, but
Mhm,
it's like, how did you decide to make your artwork interactive? Like, what was that?
mhm. So, trained in oil painting. And so, like, the ability to kind of like replicate what was already like existing through the image started to feel like limiting. And when I was in college, I started making my stretcher, like, instead of a square stretcher, I would just make these more abstract shapes and then wrap them in fabric and canvas. So they were like three-dimensional, almost like wall assemblage pieces, but then I was still painting them kind of like trompe l'oeil. Um, and that then evolved into them hanging in space because I was really interested in the viewer's relationship with the work and having to be aware of the paintings at the time, being aware of how you interacted with them. So I was almost like suspending these organic painted objects to where you would have to navigate them like a forest or something. So yeah, the relationship to the body and like thinking about the body in space and like engaging with work that way was like really, I don't know where it came from, but it was early. I would say like my junior year of college.
Mm.
And then like the canvas and then I was thinking about fabric and looking a lot at like Baroque sculpture and just loved the way that fabric was this like emotive, gestural um, thing that just was like a stand in for a person. So, yeah, multiple jumps down to or over to um, how it then got iterated as like these nest like forms and in space, wanting to connect the body more to architecture.
Mm.
Um, I don't know if you're familiar with Gaston Bachelard's book, The Poetics of Space, but I'm in grad school, so I'm like reading theory and philosophy. And he talks about how the bird's nest is made from its body and it's like carved out from its body. And it's like this immediate connection. So I was looking at the architecture around us and feeling the disconnection. So fabric, through many steps and experiments, became like this way to kind of bridge the gap between like the body and architecture, and then making it more nest-like. Um, yeah, to
Mm.
make that connection was kind of the spark of the idea into
How
that.
interesting. And
Yeah.
I feel like I always think about that as like we are all little like woodland creatures collecting
Mhm.
our, collecting
Mhm.
our like bits and nesting our homes. And
Yeah.
we might not use twigs and dirt and hair, but we're using, like our favorite coffee cups or like that
Mhm.
carpet that our moms made or something like
Yeah.
that. And I think it's interesting like how your work has evolved. So this next piece I'm going to put up. We've got the fabric in the similar sense of what we had beforehand, but there we've also got like a little trickling in of something extra, I guess almost like human or like that
Mhm.
we've got that wallpaper that's lining it now. So it brings that character of um this your works that we originally put up here, the fabric ones, are a little bit otherworldly, and it
Mm.
seems as though we could be on another planet when we remove some of those human, like really that straight line is pretty man-made, I think. But yeah, it seems like this next artwork that brings you, I think we talked about kind of coming off the wall a bit.
Mhm. Yeah, coming off the wall, and also, the term architectural skin was like very prominent in my mind, and I'm not sure if I read it somewhere, but like thinking about the fabric and then thinking about, well, what are other things that already exist in architecture that are like a skin, and wallpaper was like, being from New Orleans, and I feel like the decor, and there's a lot of pattern, and there's like rich textures, and so just thinking about wallpaper as like this way, it was almost like I wanted to bridge even further, like what is something that we find in the home, because yes, fabric is like curtains and then we wear clothes, but yeah, there was like wallpaper was almost like another way to get me closer to domestic space. um, and then being able to almost like, for that piece, I was thinking of like peeling back layers of a wall and then like being able to walk within it. And so the outside of that piece is a little bit more like pristine. It's got this like chiffon. And then when you walk on the inside of it, it's got this dyed and tattered like cheesecloth that's like crawling up the walls. And so it gets a little more like sinewy when you're on the inside of it. So a little bit more bodily. Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess I'm dying to ask you, and now we're jumping from oils to fabric and now latex. So how in the heck did you discover your technique now? So I think I've got a
Mhm.
little blurb that we can read to our listeners, and this is from one of your exhibitions, but I thought it did a really good job of explaining
Mm.
your work in a bit more detail. So I'll just read it. The poetic takes on a visceral existence in Trosclair's ghostly sculptures, created by painting liquid latex onto man-made and natural surfaces, allowing it to dry, and then peeling it away. The milky liquid, tapped from rubber trees, applied in multiple layers, dries to a translucent amber. At times, the latex picks up color from the original surface. In other works, the artist adds natural pigment to suggest the passage of time. So, I mean, let's rewind. What the first time you did this? How did this happen?
So the first time I did this, I was doing something else. I was like building a sculpture and then doing these tests on the side of these paint pours. Linda Bangles famously did a bunch of these latex pours of paint, and then she would lift up these malleable skins. And so I was like still kind of yearning for this like connector between like coming like something to come off of the wall. And so I was using paint as like another architectural skin and almost pouring them in these patterns based off of, I would like lay down wallpaper and then plastic and then pour the paint in the design of the wallpaper coming through it, the design coming through. And then I'd get this like lacy skin. And I was at a residency. I was at the Bemis Center for Contemporary Art. And one of the other artists there worked in mold making. And he was like, you're already using latex paint. Why not just use latex? Because I kept coming into these issues with just like climate and temperature, and the paint would get brittle and crack. And so just like very slowly, I mean, it still took another year or two because I started like adding latex into the latex paint. It's like I just couldn't get that, it's like I really had to crawl through it. And then once I kind of realized, because what it did for me was it kind of married this idea of like an architectural skin while also holding like the impression of the object. So it like recorded the object, but then it could still be malleable. So I could still like manipulate it in a way. So it kind of hit this sweet spot that I hadn't found yet with the other work that I was doing.
Yeah, I almost see it as though you're putting, you're giving a microphone to the seemingly ordinary, as like you put this brick wall on a pedestal and say, okay, now talk, kind of thing. Like you're kind of a conduit for that. So yeah, I guess walk me through the process. So you paint it on, you peel it off, and I guess like what was the first time like? What was that first experience?
Well, so the very first time I was doing this this collaborative neighborhood project, and we had gotten a donation of a bunch of like chandeliers. And so the very first I tried it was like with a bunch of kids, and we were like casting these almost like chandelier bulbs. And so the first time it was kind of it was like fun because it was like this new thing that we were all trying out together. But casting glass isn't necessarily exciting for me because there's no residue and it's a smooth surface. So while it took the shape and the impression, it was a little like, it was exciting, but like lackluster. And then at the time, my studio was in my home and I was living in St. Louis, and I was living in this old building and had this beautiful fireplace with this like copper, like grill on it. And I remember when that was like the first time when I was peeling it, I gasped because I had no idea that it would interact with the surface and like take off color, and especially like casting metal. So like this copper grid, it had this like gorgeous, almost like brownish, I don't know, it was like against the yellow. And as I was peeling it, I was like recording myself, and I went like that, gasped when I like saw what it like how it came out. And so I mean it was so exciting. It was just like, and it's like gratifying too, like when you're a kid and you get glue on your hands and you get to peel it off. but like at a larger scale. So yeah, it really hit a lot of like sensory things for me. And then the excitement of kind of being able to guide the process, but not always know what you're going to get. Kind of like when you glaze ceramics and put it in a kiln, and it's like, you kind of hope for the color you want, but you really don't know. So I like that level of spontaneity and um, yeah, excitement.
Yeah, and it is that gasp, that moment, I feel like is awe, you know? And I
Mhm.
think we all look for that in our lives in different ways, and yeah, I was thinking about, like, the taking the paint off for the first time because you avoid that, like, if you're
Mhm.
renting, you avoid to, pull the things off the wall and make but in your work, it's like it's a different story. We wanna pull those
Mhm.
things because it adds to it,
Mhm.
and it kind of I almost think of it as like a record, like
Right.
it adds to the richness of the song of
Mhm.
the space in a way.
Mhm.
Yeah, really, really interesting.
Well, and I want to mention too, just like my affinity for old cities and like growing up in an old city and then moving to St. Louis, being surrounded by these historic buildings that for many reasons are like becoming undone. So, like through the undoing of the layers, getting to see the way that it's made up. So, it's almost like revealing something that's usually hidden too. So like pulling back those layers and like gravitating to things that show their history
Mm.
and are enriched because of their age, which feels like very antithetical to modern society. Like we're afraid to age, everything has to be pristine and clean. And so, yeah, there's something just like more honest and vulnerable about, about that kind of deterioration and undoing in history for me.
Yeah, and I think that's a perfect segue to talk about your work. Um, I don't know if I'm saying it right. Chrysalis? Is that it?
Chrysalis. Yep, that's it.
Chrysalis. So, I mean, I'm putting some images up, and for our listeners, could you just explain
Yeah.
what we're looking at here? What's the process?
So the liquid latex is applied using a brush by hand. And it's just imagine like we're looking at a double shotgun front porch, which is um, very common architecture in New Orleans. And just imagine like painting the entire porch. Um, but with latex, the layers build up. So what I've done is painted, I think, 4 to 5 layers on a front porch, including the ceiling, the post. And then because it builds up in multiple layers, it becomes this kind of like rubbery, just like latex gloves. And so we're looking at an image of me peeling away this latex skin that I've painted onto the front porch. And it's all one of my rules is that it has to be a seamless skin. So it can't be cast in parts. So I have to figure out connectively how everything kind of goes, like thinking about mold making and not getting myself in a bind. And then I got to exhibit it in this really beautiful space with a skylight that happened to be the exact dimensions of the roof.
Stop it.
It
That
was so,
is
it was I mean, it was so majestic in there. And, it was the summer in New Orleans. And so, like, it's hot, but we get a lot of like spurts of rain. And so, but it's like sunny and rainy. So, like, you could be underneath the porch and like feel like you were outside because of like the massive skylight above it. So, that was like pouring light in, but then also getting the sound of the rain from above. It was, it like could transport you right back outside. It was really the best pairing. Uh,
Yeah, and you talk about your work in really a bodily lived sense and
mhm.
reading a little bit about the shotgun houses and how they're meant to kind of make it so the air can move through.
Mhm.
Um, and it really like it sounds like this was just a match made in heaven for the exhibition space and the work to kind of do
Mhm.
that, have that aid in that breathing process, I suppose.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, it's just beautiful, like walking through that, and it is like a ghostly in a way as well. Like
Mhm.
you can start to really see that, but it's also a nest. Like, what I guess the question really is like, what are our homes? You know,
Mm. Mhm.
and how are our homes? Mhm.
Is it a rhetorical question or you want me to answer it?
If you have an answer, I would love an answer.
Hmm. Well, I do think they're an extension of ourselves. And, like when I'm looking at this and I'm thinking about architecture and examples of architecture like this, where it is built with the environment and the climate that it is a part of, and it's built to facilitate, a safe and like secure home, also in a climate where like it's really hot, and so like to be able to like be on your front porch or have all your windows and doors open and have that air through, and then thinking about like building as body, like that to me, like when a body is like breathing, it's like, I'm sorry, when a when a built see, they're all the same. When a, when a building is like considering airflow, it's just like more in tune. So yeah, I mean, home, and when I think when it's like more fit to place, home is kind of like this symbiotic relationship like with our surroundings.
Mm.
And I have more ideas, but I'm sure we'll get.
Yeah, I guess it's a good little segue too to go into this artwork here. All roads lead home. Can't help but think of Dorothy with this one. I'm sure you got that a lot
Mm,
with brick in the
totally.
past. But in particular, I wanted to, oh, and for our listeners, I'm sorry, there's a lot of beautiful brickworks. And I mean, you can explain this much better than I can.
Sure.
Can you explain what we're looking at?
Definitely. We're looking at an installation that predominantly is cast brick. One of them is titled, in the forefront, it is a brick fireplace titled Hearth. And essentially, I cast it in a way that it's more structural at the top. And then I selectively cast the brick as it kind of went down the structure. So it almost like unravels into this like lacy, porous structure and then like just spills out on the floor. And in the background, we have a brick pathway that has a deep kind of like its own story. And then almost to the side, this piece that is an kind of like an area. It's supposed to feel like an area rug, like a rug that you would have in your home, but it's compiled of like um, almost like mm, not medallion. I don't know. There's like a paving. I forget what it's called, but it's like a circle that kind of just like rotates out, made of bricks. That is kind of like a common maybe motif in like landscaping and like brick design.
Hmm. Yeah, and I want to really zoom in. You've chosen to embroider on this one.
Mm.
Home is a fleeting feeling I'm trying to fix. Um, I mean, I want to ask first about the embroidery. So,
Mhm.
when do you feel like I'm going to embroider on this latex?
This was actually the first piece that I ever embroidered into. It was during the pandemic, and I just needed something to do creatively that was more small scale, and learning a new skill and having, YouTube teachers at my fingertips, embroidery and punch needle became the thing that I was interested in. And I had I had this phrase that I had gotten from, so it was written. So after Hurricane Katrina in New Orleans, someone had spray painted on a door of their home this phrase. And I found it because I was like walking in Google like maps down the street back in time, 2006. So it showed the homes that had been affected by the hurricane and were starting to be rebuilt. And so I was almost like this portal back into time. And then I saw this phrase, and it was just like, I don't even need to make art anymore. This is like the most, like this phrase. I mean, and the way that it was like scrawled on the door, it was just like, it was very, haphazard, And so I was just like, well, that's everything I've ever wanted to kind of like encapsulate. Um, and so I was kind of toying around with like that phrase and what I would do with it. And embroidery felt like the right thing. And this was like maybe 3 years before it landed on this piece. Because I was like, oh, well, maybe I'll embroider it on like in a traditional way, like some kind of like, I don't know. I had like a home and then that text. And I was like, maybe I'll do it into a carpet. And yeah, it kind of, I just knew I wanted that text to be a part of something. And this rug, I think again, like trying to find a middle ground to like have text become a part of the work, because our eye is just like so, we can't help but gravitate to text and people's faces. And so I didn't want it to feel like placed on top of, it was very much a material choice to choose to embroider it, because I wanted to convey the sentiment, but like not have it distract. And yeah, so it just happened kind of. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's it works, and that area rug kind of vibe, I get that because that is such a homey
Mhm.
feeling thing, and this one really struck me as well. This one's called Stoop. We don't live here anymore, and you've created a cast of really a brick stoop,
Mhm.
and this just got me like on a, oh my gosh, like well, first of all, I will never look at brick the same again. So you've opened up my mind to brick. But the thing that it really got me thinking about was my home growing up, and that's no longer standing now.
Mhm.
And it's really the stoop, the stairs going up to my home there, it's like this visceral feeling of, they were rotting. I'm
Mhm.
originally from Vancouver, Canada, so it's
Mhm.
wet and they're slippery, they're rotting through, they're creaky, the paint's all coming off.
Mhm.
And at the time, as a teenager, I was thinking, oh God, like I'm gonna fall through these stairs one day. But now, it I would give anything to go
Mm.
and walk up those stairs again. So I wonder, for you or maybe for our listeners to have a think about, I would love for you to tell me though, are there any places that you wish you had cast that you wish you had as like a little visceral photograph?
Oh, I mean, I try to kind of like locate what the longing is around home. And I think it's like a lot of things. But in a weird way, I mean, the first home that I was, born into, that I think my parents moved out of when I was 10, 8, or I don't know. There's just something about that home that was so like warm, and it's such formative years. So my childhood home. But it's interesting because like I have a photographic memory of it. Like I know, like I could draw it out for you, and I could like, I just remember every element of it. And so yeah, I don't know if there's a particular place that I feel like, oh, I wish I could cast it, but there's definitely like this, there's a reason that it's like printed in my memory like that. Cause I can go back there in my mind, cause yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, and that's a really I think that's what memory is a strength. Like memory
mm,
is experienced by people in so many different ways, I think, and uh, your work really speaks to like the fragments of that. I think, like,
mhm,
and almost in a dream-like sense. These the casts that you create are really like, yeah, like how for me at least when I experience memory, like it's almost just as if this just like this stoop in this gallery, I see that specific thing and then the rest of the stuff is gone, but it's incredible that you have the capability to kind of paint that whole picture in your mind, and I'm sure some people do, but yeah, that's I think too the thing with the stairs is really interesting, and like the spaces speaks to the evidence of human touch
mhm,
as well, but the spaces that we kind of move through, and you tend to have stairs quite a bit kind
mhm,
of in your work. You have this beautiful cast of stairs in this work in particular called Relics of Passage, and even that title there, it's speaks to our movement,
mhm,
um, moving through place. Are the
mhm.
stairs, do they feel like something you keep coming back to?
I mean, I love that you picked that up on the title. Like for this show, I mean, this is like a solo show in this like very kind of like narrow space, but like the the piece on the left hand side is so that yes, there's stairs, and then there's like this entrance, kind of like arch with columns that you would pass through in like an old New Orleans home, like from the foyer into like I don't know if the next one's the parlor. I don't know what room is what, but it's like, so I was, and then by like inverting it, and turning it upside down, it feels like this space that's like inaccessible. So there's like a movement and an energy with stairs that like, I feel like there's, because I think about the body moving through space a lot, it's always like very visceral. So like for me, like stairs have this, even the impression of stairs, it's like this pull of like how we're supposed to interact with them. But then because they're in latex, it's like not possible, or because it's like turned upside down, this usually would be an entryway. We now cannot pass through it. So it's kind of talking about that like desire that can't be um, met in a way. And I want to mention too that like it's really important for me in the work to kind of like have the armature or of the what's kind of holding it up show the like the shape of what it was, but then allow the latex to kind of drape and kind of be more malleable, because I think like there's also like this unreliability about memory. But
Mhm.
also with like home too, like the notion that like home is like a secure and stable space, and like thinking of like this home that protects us. But then of course thinking about like time and weathering and the climate crisis and like all these ways that like we're actually really vulnerable. um and two, that like our relationship to our environment and to our home, like the upkeep and the repair of it, is also like a really big part in like its structural stability and like protection. So yeah, there's a lot of things going on as far as like the structure, and then the more malleable kind of like
Mhm.
intangible or maybe like dreamlike. um and yeah, and just the way that like memory, and yeah, I think memory does that too. We can get really fixed on something being one way that we remember it, and then when we start to kind of take into account other parties, or like maybe we've grown
Mhm.
and our lens has changed and we look back on it, our memory can also like shift and change over time. And I think that's just like a really fascinating um, thing that maybe we take for granted. Like my memory of this is like the truth. Uh,
Mhm.
but it's like, who told the story, yeah, what all the different angles that can come into play.
Yeah, and it's like that, I always see the image of, I forget who it was. I'm a terrible art historian right now, but the melting clock kind of
Yeah.
situation of like what
Salvador.
is, yes, thank you. Much better than I am. But I wanted to kind of bring up, and I know we're running short on time, and we've got a lot more images that I want to show, but maybe, yeah, we knew that we wouldn't perhaps get through them all. But I do want to talk about this idea of a memoir kind of thing, of a monument. Sorry, not memoir. And I often kind of, when words come to mind when I view artwork, I go straight to online etymology
Mhm.
because I want to know the richness of that word.
Mhm.
So what we found here was, so monument is a memorial structure, a statue, a votive offering, literally something that reminds, moner, to bring to one's recollection any enduring evidence or example, and structure or edifice to commemorate a notable person, action, period, or event. So this word kind of kept coming to my mind, and I really loved that enduring evidence, really,
Mhm.
because it's evidence is memory, and evidence
Mhm.
enduring, like it's really like you feel
Mhm.
the action of that, you feel the
Mhm.
visceral action of that in your work, where no matter how hard you try to capture the
Mhm.
present moment and this time, and even these words in this moment with all of the people that are listening and all the different timelines, like it's enduring, but fleeting, we're trying to
Mhm.
grab evidence. And yeah, I think that your work does such a beautiful job of like almost like an image, just capturing
Mhm.
that evidence of that time.
Mhm.
And even still, it's wavy and breathing and distorted because it could never be that
Right.
thing that it once was.
Right. I mean, I think it's just, I'm casting using a material that's also ephemeral, so it's like it's its own thing that's going to shift and change color. So I think there's something, like seeing the word monument and just like there's like a mass to it and there's like a permanent
Mhm.
feeling to it. And I think that like there's monument feels permanent to me, and that like what I'm doing is almost like I also love, what was it, the enduring evidence.
Enduring evidence.
Yeah, because my process is like very labor intensive. And like thinking back to how I can like recall my childhood home in my memory, I can recall everything that I've cast from my memory now because the intimacy of the time that it took and just like spending time with like every inch of each surface.
Mhm.
It's like now a record. And I think there's something too that like happens in people's mind when we think like, oh, a brick wall looks like this, or the disorientation of like the real, and like, oh wait, what is that? Like it's a brick, but it's soft. Um, but I think like it helps then to like heighten your awareness back out into the world. So it's almost like I don't know if like memorial, it's almost like being able to like then appreciate things maybe that you didn't necessarily look at the same way before. Um, and yeah, so yeah, I also love words and I love dissecting them and like trying to figure out um, how to connect with all these fallible ways, that like don't feel like it. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, and sometimes words, like, I my background is in theater performance, and they'd always say that words are the last thing to come. So we
mm,
don't think
mm,
that's the thing, like, we visualize and we move and we experience bodily before a word is
mhm.
even, or your lines even come out, right? That's
Yeah.
that's the best. way to live, I think.
Yeah.
But sometimes words can feel a bit futile, but sometimes they can give us that dimension that we're looking for. But
Mhm. Yeah, I think
yeah.
there's a depth to, like, when you find the right one, it just kind of like gives everything more shape too. So I think it's like a back and forth, like informing of.
Mm.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I want to talk about as well your work. I mean, I love this photo of casting stairs while we're on stairs. This is so grand and beautiful. We're looking at Carlie peeling off the latex from this grand staircase, and I feel like I'm jamming it in here because I just want to talk about it. It's just,
Yeah.
but I really would love for you to explain to me now the trajectory of your work. So you cast these beautiful, interiors and buildings, and now you're moving into casting trees. Can you tell me a bit about that?
Yeah. So I guess long story short, I have the privilege of doing um, artist residencies, and a lot of my work is informed by place. And I was at a residency on like 90 acres of preserved woodlands in Tennessee, and was kind of like, there are no buildings here except for the log cabins that we're living in that were sourced from the trees on this preserved land. So, I mean, it was like this literal connection for me, like living in a home that was like a Lincoln log, traditional Lincoln log cabin, and then reflecting that back out to trees and nature. And I've always thought of like the domestic space and home as like the vessel for our lives and like to show history. And just thinking about like the buildings that we inhabit have held so many other lives and will, they're like these markers of time. And then like at that residency, I was like, well, trees actually, like when you think about like a record of time, like trees have seen everything. They know and they'll be here longer than any of this. So I think that connection kind of spilled out between the built environment to the natural living world, and just thinking about home in a much broader scale. So that's kind of how the seed was planted in so many, um,
Mm,
but yeah, and so, thinking about nature as teacher and kind of these regenerative cycles of being. And, um, I think in our society where we want everything to be new and we discard things when they're old and we get new things, and it's a very disposable um, kind of way to be. But, in nature, like everything has a purpose and its place. And through, death and decay is more life. So just like thinking about things in a more holistic way. And so the newer work is fusing together nature with architecture and kind of imagining these ways that like architecture can branch out, so to speak, kind of evolve um, over time, kind of like as nature maybe takes over or they become more fused. And that piece with the tree was thinking a lot about like how trees absorb kind of whatever's in their way. They'll absorb signs and fences and um, yeah, just kind of like adapting to place and thriving despite perceived obstacles, I suppose.
yeah. There's nothing quite like a dandelion growing out of concrete, is there? Like, good for you, man. Well done. So I wanted to ask, I think arguably my favorite question, because again, it's a hard one, but sometimes it's easy too. Um, Maybe I don't know if your answer might be inspired by some things we talked about today, or you might have had the answer before. But what do you think? What is the artist's job?
Mm. Hmm. I mean, I think I think what our job ends up being is to like metabolize the human experience. I think it's to tell about the time and the place that we're in and to like remind us of our humanity. Personally, like what like I kind of think of my job, like for myself, starting like centrally small, how do I like foster wonder and curiosity in my life? And of course, there are like all things around that. But like if I can walk into the world with wonder and like on a small scale and like have that inform um, and ripple out in everything else that I do, then that I think is what yields like the most awe-inspiring kind of practice within myself, and then hopefully like that translates out um, to others. So yeah, I think our job is to remind us like what's important, like why we're here on this miraculous what rock in the
Spinning rock, yeah.
yeah, spinning rock. Oop, I lost my yeah, just like how we can get so caught up in all these like outside um things and production based value and our worth being tied to our job and being able to make money and all these things like under capitalism and just it we I think we lose sight of how incredible things are, but then also like need a place to kind of like put grief and to put um, just like the full gambit of like what happens in a life, and I think yeah, we find that and then we share it through art, and I think that's how we also move through joy and grief is communally together. So art kind of holds all of those things, I think.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. You're so right. Um, really is like a container, but also a stage and yeah,
Mm.
many different things. And I wonder too, like I feel like I'm a bit of a creative that's like in a pickle. Like I feel a bit like "Ah, I just don't know what to make anymore. I've made so many things." And I wonder if you do you have any advice for artists that feel a bit stuck, like they're not
Mhm.
sure where to go next?
I mean, I go on a walk, I go on a hike, I go out in nature. I mean, I think for me, like figuring out what like makes you excited, um, and not thinking about things as like a product, um, and like learning something new, if like getting stuck to me sounds more like hitting a wall of like not learning. I don't know, like to learn like what learning how to see things differently, learning about a new process, learning, I don't know, and just like following curiosity and not being tied to the outcome of like making it into something creative. Cause I think just like, yeah, if you value creativity, yeah, I think it finds its way back to you, like if you're making things out of like your own kind of like value systems and ideas of like wonder and awe, I think it just kind of always finds its way back. And sometimes it's just like get out of the studio, like be in the world. Like sometimes we need a break.
Mm.
Yeah, because life informs, the creative practice.
Mhm. Yeah. I think that's it too, is the dedicating that time and that slowness and not thinking about the product, not thinking about the end result or
Mhm.
focused on that, being really focused on the journey and being slow with it. I think a lot of us put pressure on ourselves to, is it done yet? Is it
Yeah.
done yet? Or is it done yet? Can I sell that? Is it done yet? And
Mhm.
sometimes that's actually that kills your creativity, I think.
Mhm.
Those spots. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Like for me, it's usually like, what is a new problem that I want to solve that I'm never going to solve, but like the arriving and like the pursuit of, I think, finding truth and beauty. I think through that, the art making is kind of just the residue of that. And so for me, the through line was like a life practice of these values, and the art just happens along the way, which I'm very grateful to have that. It's like a way to, yeah, to see the world through.
I love that. The art is the residue. That's the title of this episode. No, I don't know the title.
I mean, kind of, yeah.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Carlie. We've got a little bit of time left to do our little game that we normally do at the end of each episode.
Oh, I thought the hard question was the game.
No, the game is called Every Artist Must, and our listeners might be familiar with this. I think most of us do it. I've missed it a couple times, sorry. But essentially how we do this is you finish my sentence. You can finish it in as long or as short as you want.
Mhm.
So are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. Every artist must create.
Period.
I know.
No, oh, that was the thing you were telling. Okay, no. Every artist must.
No, period is fine. If that's how you feel, period.
Yeah.
We can put a period on the end of that.
Whatever is it. Yeah.
But we cannot put a period on the end of all of them because we
Okay. Okay. Yeah. No, that's fair. That's fair. Does it have
Okay.
to be one word? I think I'm getting too hung up on the
No,
words.
just it can be
Okay.
anything. Just finish my sentence. Go with your intuition. Feel it out. We're in the
Oh,
moment here. Okay.
that was a draft.
Every artist must own.
The thing that came to mind was their truth, which feels kind of cliche. But
That's lovely.
yeah, I think like the recentering and like the coming back to yourself, like who you are answering to at the end of the day.
That's awesome. I love that. Every artist must gather.
Mm, rocks.
It's true.
I mean, I love collecting rocks. Artists love collecting rocks. There's something very gratifying about like collecting in general.
Oh,
But just like, yeah, I've been beachcombing since I've been here. And it's like I think that yeah, the act of collecting is like through it, you see the world in like a new way. So I think like, yeah, look for cool rocks, look for
I love
cool
that.
debris.
I love that. Many of our listeners are avid collectors, so you're preaching to the choir. It's good. um, every artist must remember.
That we're here for a very short time. So do what brings you joy and fuels the rest of your life.
Oh, that is so nice, Carlie. Thank you. I think that's a great place to end our episode. I think that's really, yeah, beautiful words. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your energy. Thank you for your breath and the space that we've taken up today. And this has been so nice.
Oh, thank you so much, Nicola. This has been so wonderful to talk to you and get to know you a little bit more. And yeah, it's been really great.
Yeah. So good. I wish I could just hit the button and leave us with the beautiful good vibes, but I want to also point to your beautiful artwork that's for sale. I'm sorry. I do work in marketing. I need to bring it back to that because
Understood.
beautiful. But no, truly, the artwork that I'm just gonna put it up here on the screen for us. So we've got some beautiful artworks called home relics.
Mhm.
Carlie's got these on her website, and you can contact her directly to inquire about purchasing them. They're beautiful. They're detailed and embroidered and full of breath and life, but kind of more of a home friendly version instead of some of those big, big, big ones that you make.
I mean,
Um,
unless you want a cast of a staircase next to your actual staircase. If you have the room,
Look,
walk.
let's talk. And just for our listeners as well, things coming up.
Mm,
You said you've got a show in the Bronx that's about the relationship to trees, and I think some of our
yes.
audience members would love to attend that. So can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yes, it's an exhibition called Trees We Breathe. It's at Wave Hill, which is a garden and cultural center tucked away in the Bronx. It's really magical. It's a trek, but it's really worth it. So that group show is running until the end of November. And yeah, it's a really beautiful curation about our relationship with trees and yeah, just like how we can be better stewards, but also learn from them. So I have two pieces in that show.
Beautiful. Oh, and I think you've got a few other things coming up, but I think we'll wrap it up and we can put all of the relevant links, all of your websites, social media, all that good stuff. We'll have it in I want to like point down here and be like all fancy, but I think it's going to be somewhere in the description of this episode. And we'll also have the show notes on our website. So for anyone that was listening, you can jump there and have a look at some of the beautiful images that we've shared in this episode. Um,
So,
I think that's all.
oh,
That's the
thank you so
time.
much, Nicola.
Thank you,
It's been
Carlie.
great.
A beautiful rest of your day,
Thank you.
evening. Yeah, thank you again for this beautiful conversation. Absolutely loved it.
Thank you. All right.
Thank you.